caution with blanket tree planting earlier, because that's what the political parties seem to be vying with each other to see who can plant the most trees at the minute. Well, I'm not against planting trees, but it's a simplistic approach which won't help our habitats, and it won't necessarily help too much with carbon capture either. So one of the things we overlook is the importance of peat bogs. Peat bogs. Our peat bogs are an enormous carbon capture system. And there's some fantastic projects going on to protect the degradation and exploitation of our peat bogs. So one of the things you can do in your gardens is not buy compost with peat in it, and I suspect most of us are doing that. It's actually pretty hard to find a compost without peat in it. In most garden centres there's only one, and you have to look hard for it. But that peat comes directly out of the ground, and that means an immediate release of carbon into the atmosphere. So there's all sorts of little things that we can do like that, and I would be saying to the government as well, the new government, climate change is inextricably linked to how we protect our biosphere, and it isn't all just about simplistic answers like planting more and more trees.
Well, the only thing is, we were thinking of planting, like celebrating 900 years since the first monastery was built here, of planting 900 trees. Should we do that?
Yeah, 900 trees planted sympathetically is fine. They're talking about, the government's talking about millions and millions of trees, and if it's not done sympathetically, we'll just have these awful plantations that will look awful and won't do a great deal of good either. There's a great deal of scope for even allowing areas, we've all heard of rewilding. That's just as good a process. In fact, natural regeneration of trees is often, they end up healthier and stronger and more resilient than shoving trees in the ground. One other very quick thing, we've all heard of ash dieback. Well, one of the causes of ash dieback was us importing too many ash trees from the continent and not helping natural processes by fast growing too many trees and then importing the disease in with them. So again, it's just being clever and nuanced about how we approach these things. We tend to have knee-jerk reactions to problems, and I think it always requires a little bit more clever thought about how we do these things.
Right, with this question though, to what you're going to ask your politician.
Yeah, I would link the climate change issue to food security in terms of and resource use efficiency. So to give you a couple of examples there, we're heavily dependent on imported phosphate for our food production system in this country. It is all imported. We can't produce it here. It's a finite resource. It's all imported generally from politically unstable countries. The stability of those countries is not going to improve with climate change, and the resource is continuing to be depleted. We need to manage that resource in this country much better if we're to maintain, let alone improve, food production. Much of the phosphate fertiliser that's been applied since the war applied to land is still there. It's still locked up in the soil. We need to think about how we can use that, but we need to think about how we can do so in a sustainable way. And there are other objectives, much broader objectives associated with soil management as well, that can be linked to climate change and to food production. So improving soil management it might include improving soil organic matter, soil organic carbon, which helps with carbon storage and sequestration, but it also helps with improving soil function, which has implications for our crop production, and it has implications for other issues and processes such as flood risk management as well.
Right, and on this question that we had from that.
Well, I think there should be an assessment of carbon footprint for each of us. It should be equivalent to a tax return, and it should be published, and therefore your neighbours would know whether you're cheating or not. Now, the way to get that started is a challenge, I think, for this group, to get together with friends and in churches and so on and do that. And work out your carbon footprint. It's not an easy calculation, but you would help, and see how it goes on pulling that back once you've got the numbers.
I think I would ask the Prime Minister to create a new cabinet post, and that would be the Secretary of State for Climate, who would actually have the same status, if not superior status, to the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Foreign Secretary, because all of those things are linked into climate. Not going to happen, is it?
Do you want to add something?
I don't mind. Yes. Wow, this is really stretching my imagination. Just to get the invitation, let alone what we talk about it. I'm not sure it'd be a good use of my time. But on the other hand, I would add global social justice and how we can disempower this country.
We're doing
I'm
that.
going to say all of the above, and I can't add much more to any of them. I'm going to say this obsession with airport expansion that we are seeing all over the country. The Mayor of Bristol was reported 2 weeks ago as saying he believes that a second runway at Bristol Airport will actually reduce carbon emissions. Hear me out. It will, the dear man said it would reduce carbon emissions because people wouldn't then be driving to other airports. So I think we really need to educate our politicians about what this actually means.
And rationing air travel.
Rationing
air travel.
Yes, and a frequent flyer tax, which I would absolutely love to see.
Okay. Julie.
World Wildlife Fund have, if you put in footprint wwf.org or something, they've got a really simple carbon calculator, and it's been validated by some climate scientists, just to give you an idea of where your footprint is. And the chart that comes up, the poor people's footprint is about that size. Our sort of footprint's that size, and the government's target is rubbish because it's too high. It's 2020.
Somebody wanted to ask a question about trees. Who was it over here? Have we?
I think you've largely answered the question.
We've answered the question on trees.
Demystify it.
I've just about run out of the questions. I think I have run out of questions. If anybody else got another question they'd like to ask of the panel, or just to raise a question before we bring this to a close.
This is not a question, just a comment on Blanket Bog. I live in the High Peak, and in the 80s, the acid rain depleted it all, and the rivers were brown with the peak water that was coming down. And they seeded and planted sphagnum moss, and there's more carbon captured in Blanket Bog than there is in all the forests in the world. And we have a measure of that in this country as well, and that's a success story.
That's good.
Thanks. Just to comment on my own question there. I'm assuming that the government minister, unless it's Caroline Lucas or somebody, is not going to be particularly interested in climate or green issues at all. So therefore, I think you have to associate it with something completely different. That would have been my take on it. So I was going to talk about employment creation, particularly in the deprived areas of the country. And how can the climate, solving climate, be associated with things to be employment creating in Stoke-on-Trent and Mansfield, Nottingham, and so on.
Right, great, good. Any other questions?
Sorry, it's a comment on as well, and health would be my other really big one, because there's a lot of asthma, there's a lot of other problems, lung problems, that are all related to small particle pollution, which is also related to climate change. So that is a really big one that most people will grasp. And in terms of all the books that people